Welcome to Paper Crafter's Library. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this Way to Go card featuring Stampin' Up's Simply Stars stamp set and the Simple Stories 24/7 6x6 paper pad. So I'm starting here with a 4x5 1/4 inch piece of Paper Tray Inks Stampers Select white cardstock. I've put some Dotto adhesive, a temporary removable adhesive, onto my grid paper, and I'm just going to stick my cardstock to that. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my sentiment in the bottom right corner because all the other elements in the card are going to be placed in relation to the sentiment. So I want to make sure that that's exactly where I want it, and that'll help me decide where to stamp and arrange everything else. So I have it on my imaging sheet. Now, even though the stamp is a clear acrylic stamp, even with clear acrylic stamps, which you can see through, anytime I want it to be exactly where I want it to be, I will still use my Stamp-A-Majig. Now, if you're totally 100% confident in your placement abilities, and you certainly don't need to, but for me, I still like to use my Stamp-A-Majig. Now, the stamp I'm using, the Way to Go sentiment, comes from Paper Tray Inks Think Big Favorites number 17. I'm going to ink it up in my jet black archival ink from Ranger. This is my go-to stamping ink. And I'm going to stamp. There you can see what that looks like so far. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to stamp a few stars onto my cardstock piece. Now the colors I chose are based on the colors in my pattern paper. And the pattern paper that I'm using comes from the Simple Stories 24/7 6x6 paper pad that you can see here. That's the arrow pattern, which I cut to 1x5 1/4. And then this grid type pattern comes from the Simple Stories 6x6 basics paper pad. And I cut that to 1 1/8 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to lay this on top here because that's going to help me determine the placement of my stars. Now for the stars, the stamp set I'm using is Stampin' Up's Simply Stars. I'm going to be using these 3 stars here. And as I mentioned, the colors I'm using are based on the colors in my pattern paper. So I've chosen Stampin' Up's Crushed Curry, Baja Breeze, and Real Red. So I'm going to start with Crushed Curry, and that's what I'm going to stamp my largest star in. So I'm just inking that up. I've got my paper here just for placement. So I know that I want my star to be tucked a little bit under the paper. So once I know where my star is going to be, remove my paper and stamp down. And there you can see I have my first star. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and give that a moment to dry, and then I'm going to stick on my pattern paper. So I'll be back in just a second. So I'm going to start by sticking my yellow grid pattern piece, which, as I mentioned earlier, is 1 1/8 of an inch wide by 5 1/4 inches high. I've applied my adhesive to the back, and I want to align it with the left-hand edge of my cardstock, like so, and you can see it overlaps the star. Then I have here my arrow piece, which is 1x5 1/4, and I'm aligning that with the left-hand edge of my card as well, so that it just leaves a very thin border of the yellow. And I put that up just a little bit too high. See if I can get it off without ripping it too badly. Okay, let's try this again. Worst comes to worst, if it's off a little bit, I can always trim my card, but I'd rather trim it towards the top than the bottom. No, but it looks okay. So there you can see what that looks like so far. So now we're going to stamp the remaining 2 stamps, and I'm going to stamp 1 in Baja Breeze and then 1 in Real Red. So this little polka dot one, I'm going to ink up in my Baja Breeze Classic ink, and I'm going to stamp that here like so. And my red, I think I'm going to stamp up here. Not super dark, but good enough. Okay, so now that those are stamped, I'm going to take some twine. This is charcoal twine from the Twinery, and I want to tie a bow so that it's positioned up here. So wherever you want the bow to be, you're going to leave about 8 inches of twine. Hold it in that location with your thumb. And then wrap your twine around twice. And you want to end right where your thumb is. And you just want to make sure you don't pull too tight. And then you want to extend it so that it matches that first piece and trim it. Then you can go ahead and tie your bow. And I'm going to stick this one end underneath both of my twine pieces so that my bow kind of ties around. Hold on, it's all twisted. Let's see here. It's this one that I want underneath, so that when I tie my bow, it ties around both pieces of twine. So now I'm going to go ahead and tie my bow, same way that you tie your shoes. And then I'm just going to make sure I tighten that. And if you need to shorten the loops, I always put my finger over the knot and a little bit of the end of the twine as I pull it, just to kind of try to help keep it from twisting, because I find that it'll have a tendency to kind of twist on itself and then the bow sits kind of funny. So there you can see how that looks so far. I'm going to be matting this onto a card that I've made out of crushed curry cardstock. I took a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece, scored it 5 1/2 inches, and then folded it in half using my bone folder, which I ran along the crease, just to help give it a nice crisp crease. Now, because the twine at the back is going to give it a little bit of dimension and stick up a little bit, I'm actually going to stick this to my card using my Stampin' Dimensionals. So as you can see, I've put one in each corner, one in the center, removing the backing, and then just centering and sticking this onto my card front. So there you can see what that looks like. And I think the last thing I'm going to do is add a little bling. I'd considered kind of not adding anything and just ending it there, but I don't know. Maybe if it was for a boy, I wouldn't put any bling, but I like to add bling wherever I can. So I'm just going to add I added a medium rhinestone to the yellow star, and then a tiny one to each of the smaller stars. So there you can see what our card looks like, and it's now finished. If you enjoyed this video, you enjoy the way we teach, and would like to learn even more, we invite you to check out the Paper Crafters Library. Whether you're a beginner looking to learn the basics or an advanced paper crafter looking to learn new skills and techniques, you'll find it all here. Stamping, card making, scrapbooking, altered art, mixed media, we cover it all. With almost 2,000 videos currently in our library and videos added each month, we are the largest and most comprehensive online library of video tutorials for paper crafters on the internet. We invite you to visit our library and see what we're all about.